This adventurous story begins in the very depths of the ocean. A team of researchers was continuously trying to explore a mysterious area. They had found a sample of something that existed at the very bottom of the sea. To find out more about this object, they sent a few of their people down. Their job was to descend into the deepest part of the ocean, where the pressure is extremely high, and investigate the sample to understand what it truly was. Several divers ventured to the location, and from a distance, they managed to capture an image of what appeared to be a rock-like structure deep inside the ocean. But once this data was circulated outside, scientists were stunned, because it wasn't an ordinary rock. Looking at it closely, it seemed like some kind of unknown gate, possibly a portal leading to somewhere else. If its mystery could be unraveled, it would be the greatest discovery in human history. But then it was revealed that every diver and ship sent to that location had mysteriously vanished. All signals were lost, as if they had completely disappeared. Clearly, something extremely dangerous was down there, something no one had yet discovered. Because of these mysterious and hazardous events, NASA had eventually stopped oceanic exploration. According to statistics, over 95% of the ocean remains unexplored. That means humanity has only explored about 5% of the ocean, which is a shockingly small fraction. Clearly, something unknown is lurking on the ocean floor. But the exploration wasn't over. The story jumps ahead by a few years, introducing us to an organization called Pikmin. This organization was dedicated to uncovering the kinds of mysterious phenomena hidden in the depths of the ocean. Currently, Pikmin organization was working on the same mission, the one that involved re-exploring the image taken from the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean. Pikmin was equipped with highly advanced technologies that allowed them to explore even the deepest underwater mysteries. We are then introduced to Dr. Julia, a woman leading the organization. Julia was briefing her team, explaining that this mission had to be done. She started by describing how, years ago, some researchers had captured an image underwater which clearly showed what looked like a gateway structure. Uncovering what was inside would be incredibly exciting. Determined to complete this mission, Julia began gathering people for the task. But the major problem was that due to the past incidents, no researcher or crew member was willing to join the mission. However, using her connections, Julia managed to gather a solid team. She first approached a man named Jim, a former professor who had worked with Pikmin organization years ago. Julia believed that Jim could be a valuable asset for the mission, so she went to meet him and explained everything. She told him how their organization had been monitoring activity beneath the northern sea continents and that this data led them to the mysterious object. Julia showed Jim all the photos they had. When Jim saw the gate, he was shocked. It was far too artistic and structured to be man-made, especially at such depth. It had to be something unknown to humanity. Jim became increasingly interested, and after a bit of persuasion and a handsome monetary offer from Julia, he agreed to join the mission. Now Julia gathered more team members, including Gordon, an engineer, Christine, a biologist, Joseph, a crew specialist. All of them were the best in their fields. Julia then explained the entire mission to them. She also introduced them to the submarine they would be using to descend to such extreme depths of the ocean. The advanced submarine was named Providence, said to be the most high-tech submarine ever built. It was designed in such a way that all crew members could dive to the extreme depths of the ocean, and the submarine was engineered to withstand even the highest levels of pressure. However, Christine and the rest of the team were extremely cautious, as the pressure at such depths is enormous, and surviving it is incredibly difficult. At that moment, the owner of Pikmin Corporation arrived. He confidently claimed that Providence was the most powerful submarine ever made. He also explained that they had invested a massive amount of money in building the Providence submarine and that they had complete faith in it, so it would definitely work. But things don't succeed based on faith alone. Everyone remembered a similar case, the company OceanGate, which had once claimed that their submersible was powerful enough to go deep into the ocean. They even promised to show the wreckage of the Titanic to the wealthy. Sadly, many businessmen and billionaires believed OceanGate's claims. But when the sub went to the ocean floor, it completely imploded and exploded due to pressure. The same thing could happen with Pikmin's Providence submarine. If there was even a slight fault, all the crew members would perish. This fear was on the minds of Christine and the others. But the owner of Pikmin Corporation was well aware of these risks and had ensured that the submarine was built accordingly. No matter what, they had to go into the Northern Sea and find out what that mysterious thing was. It was possible that the gate might connect to another world. After understanding everything, the crew sat down together for a meal. For now, They would have to undergo months of training before they were ready for the real mission. Christine shared her fear with the team. She admitted that the mission was highly risky and that there was little chance of survival, and she didn't understand why everyone else agreed to join. Gordon replied that even though the mission was risky, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If they made the discovery, they'd never have to work again. They'd become famous forever, and their names would go down in history. But they had no idea that, for some of them, this mission would be the end of their lives. Joseph and the others agreed with Gordon, and for the moment they were enjoying themselves, laughing and eating together. But poor Christine was still nervous. She was thinking about her family, so she stepped outside for some fresh air. Jim noticed this and walked over to comfort her. Christine already knew Jim. Her father had once worked with Jim on similar deep-sea missions. But during one such mission, her father had never returned. Christine still missed him deeply. Now, she feared that her own family might face the same fate, being left alone forever. She showed Jim a picture of her young son, saying how much she loved him. Christine was worried that if she didn't return, her son and family would be alone without her. They might have money, but they wouldn't have Christine. Jim understood all this. He assured her that they would return safely and that nothing could stop them from making history. Christine felt a bit more at peace, happy to know that at least one crew member felt like her best friend. The crew's training had now begun, an intense program that lasted several months. Since the mission was so critical, it was essential they were prepared for every possibility. Finally, the time arrived. The crew was ready to move forward with the mission. The submarine would be taken to the exact position in the Northern Sea, at its deepest point, where they would investigate the mysterious object. All the crew members first boarded a boat because from there, they had to enter the submarine. The submarine was placed right in the center for maximum safety. On the other side, from the command center, Julia was guiding them, explaining what to do and when to activate each system. Every crew member was assigned a specific task, and they had to perform it with absolute precision. This was a critical mission, so even a small mistake couldn't be afforded. Soon, following the given coordinates, they entered the submarine, and every system was activated one by one to begin the descent. Christine and Jim were sent in first to perform a quality check and ensure everything was functioning correctly. After receiving a green signal, the rest of the crew boarded the ship. Slowly, the submarine began its descent towards the target zone. The depth was so extreme that it would take several days to reach. That gives an idea of just how vast and deep the ocean is. After hours of travel, they finally reached a specific position where they had to collect a sample, a task assigned to Jim. Based on his training, Jim had to carry out the task alone. So Jim went down to suit up. Hang briefed Jim, telling him to work with utmost care and report immediately if he sensed anything unusual. The rest of the crew was also focused on their tasks. Meanwhile, Christine and the others navigated the submarine closer to the strange gate, which was the central focus of their research. Seeing it live for the first time, everyone was stunned. It went deeper than they had imagined. Going closer might help them uncover something ancient. As Christine and the others approached the gate, they saw it up close for the first time and were in shock. Jim, too, had returned after collecting a few samples and had gotten a glimpse of the gate. The shocking thing was, the gate appeared man-made. That is, it looked like it had been built by humans. But the biggest question was, humans had never been this deep before. So how could something like this possibly have been built? It seemed impossible. To find out what lay beyond the gate, they decided to take the submarine even deeper inside. Julia and the team at the command center stayed connected, continuing to relay all vital information. Gordon and the rest of the crew kept their life support systems activated, because anything could happen down there. They were stepping into the unknown. Still, they took the submarine through the gate. Poor Christine was still very scared. As the submarine passed through the gate, everything seemed normal at first. But suddenly, all their systems began to shut down. They lost connection with the command center, and Julia was desperately trying to reestablish contact. Inside the submarine, there was growing panic. Water had begun to seep in from some areas. Looking at the situation, it felt like none of them would survive, just like all the other submarines that had vanished before. It seemed this submarine too was going to disappear. Everyone on board was praying for things to stabilize. Suddenly, they received a signal. The connection had been reestablished. Julia began relaying information to them again, but what she said shocked the entire crew. She told them they had been offline for more than 6 hours. But for the crew, it felt like barely 10 minutes had passed inside the gate. How could 6 hours go by? Gordon and the others checked and confirmed. Oxygen usage matched 6 hours. Julia was telling the truth. They had somehow spent 6 hours inside, even though they had no perception of time passing. It suggested that time disturbances were occurring in this area. But this was just the beginning of the unknown. Ahead, they were about to discover something that no human in history had ever seen. As the submarine traveled forward, it reached a point where they saw massive, strange-looking rocks. Their structure was completely different, as if they were carved with artistic patterns. Using cameras, they began transmitting live footage back to headquarters. Julia was observing everything carefully, analyzing the visuals and taking note of every unusual location. Christine, Jordan, Hank, and the entire team were highly alert because anything could happen down here. It looked like they had entered a completely different world. A world that may have been created by humans, or perhaps by some other civilization. They would find out soon enough. As they hovered their submarine near the massive structures, they spotted a strange creature on the ocean floor. Its size was massive, like a giant monster ready to rise and attack at any moment. However, their scanning systems indicated that the creature might already be dead. Still, they were tempted to get a closer look, but that could be dangerous. So, they decided to maintain some distance. Back at headquarters, Julia and her team ran an analysis and then gave Jim the command. You need to collect a sample of that creature's species. If we want to know what it is, we need to study its DNA and structure. That meant Jim had to go down there personally to collect samples. As per the command, Jim began suiting up. Christine came to assist him and gently said, "Take care of yourself." Over the course of the mission, a strong bond had developed between the two. They had become like a family, caring deeply for each other. In missions like this, trust and moral support were everything. Jim replied that he would be back quickly with the samples and then left in a small submarine that began slowly moving toward the large creature. The rest of the crew watched everything from the main sub. When Jim reached the creature, its sheer size was overwhelming. His tiny sub looked like a mere twig in comparison. Jim began collecting samples and managed to get them fairly quickly. He then turned to head back. What will happen next is so amazing, but we will cover this in part 2. By this, our part 1 of story ends here.